they are so beautiful.
I heard Marty Cardinal brought
Yeah.
love, joy, hope, courage.
That's a
Justice.
big one. Yeah. So lovely. And so expressive of our church. I don't know how in the world she ever found them. Oh, I love the love one. He reminds me of finding love in this church. And what, 8.5 years ago, I met Jim here, and we got married here, and this is a very romantic church. But I love them all, of course.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs, located in the heart of the walkable Tarpon Springs Historic District and known as the home of the Innes paintings. We are a liberal community for all ages, promoting spiritual growth, social justice, and the arts. I'm Reverend Kristina Spaude, the minister here at UUCTS. Thank you for joining us. I hope you find meaning in today's service, and I invite you to drop in for a more personal visit to one of our coffee hours on Sundays in the morning at 11 o'clock on Zoom. If you are new to the area or just learning about Unitarian Universalism, we'd love to meet you in one of our newcomer discussions, which are held on the second Sundays of every month at 12:15 p.m. Please refer to our website for information on how to connect with us on Zoom. Our service associate will now begin today's service. Let us enter this sacred time with open hearts and open minds.
My name is Barbara Rosen, and I happily welcome you to our Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs virtual service today. Our YouTube recorded service doesn't give us the opportunity to personally connect with you, but we would love to meet you in our virtual Zoom gatherings. Check our website at uutarpon.org on the calendar to find the programs we offer to meet with you and others. We'll begin our service today with Reverend Kristina's words and Bonnie Whitehurst's music. Out of respect for the Jewish community's Hanukkah season, we will light the menorah in place of a regular chalice to begin and end this service. The words for this lighting are called A Spark of Hope by Melanie Davis. If ever there was a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. Thank you.
In the winter where you can send your girlfriend my menorah. Our story today is called Tai Chi, the story of its beginning, as told by Denise Tracy. There was a young man who grew up in China. Everyone said that he was so calm and peaceful that he should become a monk. Not wanting to displease his family and friends by telling the truth, the young man let them think that he was indeed peaceful and calm. Inside, however, the young man was filled with feelings of doubt, joy, love, happiness, sadness, and many questions. Because he wanted others' approval, he kept his feelings and questions to himself. He went on looking calm and peaceful to everyone. When he was old enough, he entered the monastery because everyone said he looked so peaceful and calm. They didn't know of his secret inner life. Everyone was pleased because they felt that he would be a great monk. For years, he practiced sitting calmly and peacefully, and his masters were pleased. Little did they know that behind the calm exterior bubbled energy, exuberance, and still more questions. The young man kept all these things to himself. After years at the monastery, the young man was to be tested for his deep inner religious peace. He was to go to a mountaintop to meditate daily for many months, and on a final day, the master would observe his meditation. He went to the mountain for many days. He sat and sat and sat. He looked very calm and peaceful on the outside, but on the inside, his mind was filled with the crane's flight, fire and shadows, and the earth's elements, as well as questions of beginnings and endings. He did not tell anyone of the scenes and questions that filled his mind. One day, he was at the top of the mountain, sitting peacefully, pretending to be calm, meditating and preparing for the day of his exam, which was now only 2 weeks away, when a fly landed right on the tip of his nose. He started wiggling his nose to get the fly off. This did not work. He wiggled his nose again. What a stubborn fly! Next, he waved his hand and the fly danced. As he waved his hand, he discovered how joyful it was to move. The fly then landed on his nose again, and the young man waved his other hand. This, too, felt wonderful. The fly began to circle and turn with the wind and the earth. The young man leaped and laughed, dancing with the fly. As the days passed, the young man looked forward to his dancing and moving with the fly. He lost all track of time, hours, days, or minutes. He knew only the joy of moving in harmony with the elements: earth, water, fire, wood, wind, and metal. The young man went to the top of the mountain on the day of his exam, but he had forgotten that this was the most important day. He saw the fly and they began their dance together. Earth, water, fire, wood, wind, metal. They moved with focused energy and great joy. Neither the fly nor the young man noticed the master of masters seated, watching their movements. After a while, the master of masters approached. The young man grew silent, embarrassed, and fearful. He was supposed to be calm and meditative. He looked down in shame. He had failed his training. The Master of Masters then said, "Young man, you must teach me this movement. You use the energy of the life force to mirror the earth, fire, wind, sky, birds, and water. This focused energy complements our study of inner peace. Since all is in balance, we need stillness and energy. We need peace and activity. We need meditation and movement. Teach me. Then you will teach all the monks this new miracle of focused energy." So from one young man whose creativity spilled over to dance with a fly came a meditation of movement called Tai Chi. The words of inspiration today come from Gwen Matthews. This is called "You Are the Holiday Miracle." As December opens before us, we welcome in the gift of reflection. We turn toward our holiday celebrations and search for common threads of meaning. We begin with Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights, which commemorates a time of miracles when the faith of the Jewish people sustained them to reclaim their holy temple and keep the light of the menorah burning for 8 days. Yule, the winter solstice, when we are invited to explore duality, cycles, and seasons, and to witness the Holly King being overcome by the Oak King. Yule reminds us that we all partake in the miracle of renewal. And Christmas, the celebration of Jesus' humble birth in a manger, offers us to revisit the miracle of birth and the desire to find saviors to heal the scars of humanity. Here in our church, you are just as much a holiday miracle as the turning of the earth, as persistence and dedication to a faith, as the creation and celebration of each new life. We see the love you give to others, the space you create to hold one another's joys and sorrows, and the generosity and spirit you entrust to and with this community. You are a holiday miracle. This community is one of miracle makers. soft, 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 mana in my toe. I have a little dreidel, I made it out of clay. And when it's dry and ready, my dreidel I shall play. Oh, dreidel, 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 I made it out of clay. Oh, dreidel, 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 my dreidel I shall play. Every month, this church gives one of our offerings for a worthy social justice cause. This offering will go to support the laundry project planned for the first quarter of 2021. Unitarian Universalists believe in the inherent dignity and worth of every individual. It's difficult to feel dignified when you don't have clean clothes. Please give generously to support low-income families' access to wash their clothing and linens. Please go onto our website, uutarpon.org, and click on the Donate button. Select Social Justice Project and indicate the Laundry Project in your comments. If you send a check to 57 Reed Street, write Laundry Project in the memo line. And thank you. My name is Annie Johnson and I'm living in the street. I spend the morning sleeping and the nighttime on my feet. Each afternoon I look for work, I will not stoop to theft. But pride don't keep me warm at night, and pride's all I've got left. I have this bag inside my coat, it holds my one good dress. I put it on to look for work, my other stuff's a mess. I wash in public restrooms, let the people stare and blink, 'cause it's hard enough to look for work, and harder when you stink. Now I may not be important, but before you walk away, forgetting that you saw me, listen hard to what I say. This earth is not so large a thing as once it used to be. So whatever we create here will touch you the same as me. We all know the story of Hanukkah, right? There's a menorah with 8 candles and an extra one to light them. Kids get gifts, people get latkes, and there's some game to play with the dreidel. It's 8 wild nights, which have to do with the oil burning that long when it was only expected to last once. I'm not entirely sure where the wild came from, but we'll just go with it. As I was listening to podcasts again this week for new themes or perspectives to explore about the holiday, holy wow, I had no idea how variously understood Hanukkah is or how contentious. Everything I heard or read offered something different. One interpretation I heard was that Hanukkah is, in part, a way to help Jews reconnect and reflect on the promises that they made at New Year's, Yom Kippur. Basically, Hanukkah is around March or April in the Western New Year, and I mean, honestly, how are your New Year's resolutions actually going by then? Another theme of the holiday is about resistance to assimilation, assertion of Jewish identity in times of great difficulty. Another narrative about the ways Hanukkah has been reframed over the centuries and generations, from being a celebration of spiritual victory, with thanks to the military victory that led to the reclaiming of the Holy Temple, and which was later recast or transformed into the restoration and celebration of the Holy Temple exclusively when the Jews lost control of the Holy Land. And then again, it takes on new meaning when Hanukkah is held up as a more important and symbolic holiday following World War II and the Holocaust. But one understanding in particular caught my attention. Rabbi Libby Burnham was offering a lunch and learn study about Hanukkah that was rich and insightful. In it, he reflects on Greek and Jewish culture and the cultural clashes the two civilizations had and why, as this is central to understanding why the Greeks sought to defile the oil in the temple so that the Jews could not use it, and why the remaining oil continuing to burn is indeed a miracle. Basically, that clash comes down to the Jews centering God in their lives and the Greeks centering humans in theirs. Rabbi Burnham also spends a fair amount of time talking about olive oil in this talk, the most preferred substance for burning the lights of the menorah. He talks about the clarity and purity of olive oil when burning, and something I did not know, but he talks about how evidently olives fresh from the tree are really bitter and gross. In order to make olive oil or just olives palatable, there's a compound in them that needs to be removed. It takes a bit of work to get it out. He compares this work of removing that compound with the spiritual work that Jews are expected to do throughout the course of their lives, revealing the inner self with patient and continuous work. Sometimes we think that when things need to be modified, that means that somehow they're flawed. Often what it means in reality is that we just need to spend some time to release what's inside, to make the thing its best self. In this case, by removing that compound from olives to make olive oil. Can you imagine a world without olive oil? We seem to agree that it's worth that work just to get it to taste good. And I imagine that in doing the work of making olive oil, which is a time-intensive process, as all things are, where we are extracting or releasing something from within, this allows those of us who do it to have a sense of stillness, of peace, of focus while they work. This goes back to what I talked about in last week's service about stillness being an inner quality that impacts how we experience and are experienced in our outer lives. There are two aspects of space that I wanted to address this week that go along with this. Both the physical space that we may use when engaging in practices that cultivate stillness for us, as well as mental, emotional, or spiritual space that stillness invites and creates. Maybe you practice yoga or Tai Chi, which is still being offered in the park twice a week, walking or running, kayaking or boating, swimming, biking, gardening, dancing, or something else that encourages active embodiment and movement in its practice. Any of these can cultivate a sense of stillness, and I have always appreciated practices that require us to connect with our bodies. Even breath practices and singing are such practices. These practices invite us also to take up space which is a noteworthy thing in a world that generally asks us to take as little space as possible, like having cubicles and offices and libraries. Please just stay in this tiny little space. This is responsible and respectful, but like many children at recess, we also need opportunities for our bodies to move, to stretch, to play, and just take up space. This allows us to relax and to find a physical place of stillness. Like the studying monk in our story who created the practice of Tai Chi, our bodies long to move, are meant to move. Thinking about the millennia of human evolution, our bodies have been in movement and are used to movement for hunting, foraging, planting and harvesting, intimacy, fun, and all sorts of activities. We are not designed to be sedentary. Getting into our bodies with our practices helps bring us balance. Part of why some of us may struggle with stillness, ignoring the great busyness of the world, is because we don't have balance in our lives, in our bodies. Sometimes our mental, emotional, spiritual, or physical selves are not as well managed or have not been as well tended as the other parts. In the podcast that I listened to last week, Ryan Holiday used a couple of examples, not meant to be critiques, but just to illustrate. And one of the ones that he talks about is with Tiger Woods, golf prodigy and multi-time professional champion. Physically, he had mastery of his body. His skills were solidly honed. Mentally, he was super focused and clear. But as we probably all know, spiritually and emotionally, he was unable to keep up with the ways his fame caught up with and subsumed him. And his life kind of fell apart before he was able to make any kind of comeback. And he had a number of challenges on his way back to the top of the professional golf world. It's been a decade now since things began to shift for him, and things have improved. Woods took that time, he chose to take that time and space from golf to try to save his marriage, but they did end up divorcing. And then he decided to focus on caring for himself. With rehab, counseling, and other work, he was able to return to golf. I haven't watched a golf game in years, but I have to imagine that Woods was able to find some stillness in his life and balance among the many parts of himself before he returned to the world of professional sports. It's too rigorous a life, and not having balance would be just as destructive a second time through. Similar things can happen with any of us. We are so focused on our work that we don't take care of our bodies, and major health problems sometimes arise. Or when our emotional lives become too great and our mental and physical selves struggle with insomnia, focus, headaches, and other symptoms. This happens to people every day. When we claim space, physically or in time, to focus on our needs and working to achieve balance, we can begin the work of finding stillness. We use that time and space to go within, to explore our inner lives in ways that we may not have done before. And when we explore and engage all parts of ourselves, mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, we begin to learn more about ourselves and also more about what we need and what we can do. When we do spiritual practices like cultivating stillness, we can also gain greater strength and resilience to fare the difficult times. Cultivating and practicing stillness, whatever form we engage it in, gives us some distance, too, between our thoughts and emotions. Journaling, reading poetry, even Lectio Divina are all ways that we can explore these aspects of our inner lives. When we slow our thoughts down, when we move from reactivity to a space of space, breath, pause. We make a moment of silence and stillness that can be enough to keep us from acting impulsively, from acting from our emotions instead of our minds. For this aspect of stillness, Holiday talks about how JFK responded to the Cuban Missile Crisis. Taking that sudden awareness of Russian missiles just off the coast of the US, and instead of reacting with an escalation of threats or even taking heed from his advisors, military or otherwise, JFK was able to use time as a tool and make space, basically, for the situation to resolve itself in a better, slower, more healthy outcome for all of us. The crisis lasted for 13 days, almost unheard of with so much technology at their fingertips, and the ability and willingness to give the crisis and the people involved space to work it out in a way that benefited everyone, truly kept millions of people safe. The inner stillness mentally that JFK had made this achievement possible. The physicality of giving something time, extending its existence from one moment to many moments, slowing things down, letting them be moved from our passions and emotions to our thinking brains, gives us all better outcomes. And of course, JFK also had an imbalance in his inner lives. Mentally, he was prepared. Emotionally and physically, not as much. As I said last week, humans are reactionary creatures, like all other animals. We experience complex emotions, and often a handful of them at the same time, although one may take up more of our mental space at any given time. Think, for example, of a typical day. You may have a frustration at a customer encounter, excitement about a new program being offered in your community, pride at a child or grandchild who had a great music lesson, contentment with the work that you were able to do, and loving and appreciation for your partner. All of these things are true at once, right? We aren't often encouraged to think this way in our larger social narrative, and we may not even feel this way if of all 5 of those things that I listed, one is taking up the most mental space, like the frustrations that you have with a customer encounter. But by slowing things down and moving away from or moving back from mentally or even physically from those places, we make a little bit of space between our minds and our emotions. There are lots of ways that we can do this. We can doodle on a call, we can pace, wash dishes, pray, something that will help us reground ourselves and disrupt the automatic processes that happen in our minds and bodies. Help us rebalance our systems between our bodies, minds, hearts, and spirits. Truth be told, I've never been much of a prayer, more of a, for the love of all that is good and holy, please don't let the store be chaos kind of prayer. But even that is actually enough to help me get reconnected with this moment, in this place, at this time, and to let some tension out of my system. It helps me have a moment of stillness. It may be brief, but it's effective all the same. Giving us these precious moments, this space that allows us to have stillness and balance in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits, is potentially transformative. In that sliver of time is grace and the possibility for something different. It can help us move from one emotion to another, or better yet, from one emotion to a place of curiosity, or one that draws us toward connection. Life can become more rich and meaningful. And in that small fraction of our lives, we can move from doing to being to becoming our better selves. A miracle, all on its own.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep within, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Our closing words today come from Jean Harrison Newyar. She has written in The Gift of Faith. In the lore of ancient China, there is a story of a philosopher who was asked, "Where is the road called hope?" He replied, "It does not exist, but as people move upon it, it comes into being." I invite you to continue moving forward, moving gently, finding stillness on this road, this journey, this path called hope with me.
In the window where you can spend your glow
I hope that you have found meaning in today's service. Please join our coffee hour any Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m. for friendly conversation. Again, if you are new to the area or to Unitarian Universalism, we'd love to meet you in one of our newcomer discussions, which are held on the second Sundays of every month at 12:15. You can refer to our website for information on how to connect with us on Zoom. We look forward to meeting you.